Leader blind spots. Unseen behaviors that wrap company morale.
Wow, what an introduction that was, right, guys? So, let's dive into the following. So, this topic, what we have stored for you today. So, picture this. The results look fine, but the energy is flat. People stop challenging, meetings feel a bit more heavier, and then someone good leaves, okay? So, our topic, we're going to dissect it in 3 different parts today, okay? So, spotting the first crack, surface the truth, and solve without collateral. So, short, practical, no fluff whatsoever. So, meet our guests. So, if you can introduce yourselves, the name, the role within your company, and one blind spot that you have to actually fix within your business.
Sure, Chris. First of all, nice to see everybody. Very glad to be here. I'm Claudia Ionescu. I spent more than 20 years in HR, having different leadership roles, CHRO roles across Europe, Latin America, Africa. And I work mostly in payments, fintech, and classifieds industry. And to your question, in terms of the blind spot, the one that I worked on with others, but to be honest, also with myself, is what I call this constructive overdrive, meaning that instinct that you need to jump in quickly to fix things, to push things. And even if it starts from a good intention, I think at one point, it gets to limiting people to grow. It limits ownership of others. So I think that's one that it's a lifelong journey to fix.
Yeah. Adam, introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Calleja Urry. I'm the Business Development Director for Soft Construct in our Malt office. And I think adding to what Claudia said, I think one of the blind spots that I try to sort of address immediately is the silence in the room. So when there's too much silence, it can normally reflect on most of the things we're going to be discussing today in our topic, I think.
It's too loud over here.
Yeah.
So let's start with the first hairline crack, okay? And this question is going to be directed to you, Adam. So get ready for it. I know no espresso was done in the morning, but you're still on my good books. Don't worry.
So far, so good.
Yeah. So what did you notice early that most leaders dismiss within your business?
I'll carry on to what I said a few seconds ago. I think especially from my perspective, them being mostly involved in commercial setups and in sales teams, silence tends to be quite a big problem, or it's an early indicator at least that things might not be the way you want them to be within your team.
Yeah.
So it normally points to some hidden traits that could really affect a number of different things like morale within the team. So that's one of the areas I try to focus on immediately when I try spot it, because it tends to be quite evident when you're leading a meeting and nobody has any feedback. That's normally quite a big red flag initially.
Yeah. So if you could track one leading indicator, what would that be from these meetings?
Normally it's silence. Again, apart from silence, then you've got people that are a bit defensive to your, not criticism, but again, a sales team is very, can I put it? It's an intense team. There's a lot of competition amongst your members, and accountability is something that you have to try and address immediately.
Yeah. So Claudia, this is related more to you, okay? So from an HR point of view. So in regulated and fast-paced teams, which good habit quality hurts morale?
So I will pick on one that might be controversial, which is responsiveness. And I pick responsiveness because us as leaders, we need to be present, we need to be available, we need to show clarity, lead through crisis. So responsiveness is important. But I think that there is an overuse of that, especially in young companies, founder-led companies, fast-paced, where leaders get so into everything and respond so quickly that we go into a responsiveness overuse. So what that leads to, even if it's with good intention, people stop to think, right? So people start acting from just a reactive point of view. The critical thinking, the asking the right questions start to be diminishing. And I think even if it starts and it's a great thing to have as a leader, if you don't know how to balance it, it can become a harmful one.
Okay. And how would you visualize that on a weekly basis?
I would say that as a leader, it's important to make sure when you balance things, right? So, for example, if it's a crisis, right, for sure leaders are the one who need to be the one responding and need to be the one setting the clarity on where we go. But if you are in a phase of your business where you need to be creative, right, where you need to bring new solutions, then you need to have a step back, right, and create space for your team. Ask them questions, let them have brainstorming. So don't jump into everything, don't have a response for everything. So I would say it's those use cases to make the difference, where to push the pedal and where to take your foot off the pedal.
Yeah. Adam, from your point of view, how would you visualize this on a weekly basis? From a sales point of view, of course,
I mean, from a sales point of view, again, it's no different to other teams, but the main, I think, difference would be that there's a lot of competition amongst your team members, and visualizing it is hard, because at the same time, as a leader, you're still expected to deliver your own results while still being empathetic towards your team members. But I think the main visualization when it comes to that is to try and, as Claudia said, have an overall picture as to what's happening within the team. So it's not just about KPIs, but you try to dive deeper as to maybe why they're not in the right frame of mind.
And maybe one point that I could add on that, you asked about leading indicators, all right? And you said silence. I would also say, if we look at our meetings in the teams, right? Team meetings, all hands, town halls, I think those can also be indicators of the tone of the conversation and the quality, right? Are people engaged? Are people participating? Are they asking questions? So that's one. Or is mostly passive-aggressive comments. I think that's also another one where you see that only detractors are the ones speaking. It means something is wrong. And I think also absenteeism is one element that kind of signals decrease of engagement.
Yeah. So what kind of excuses will people come to you, when they're in meetings and everything, if they cannot meet their KPIs?
I think you should repeat the question because we didn't hear you.
Yes. There's an amazing event.
I can take a part of it because I heard you, Chris. I think the excuses are any type of excuse you can imagine, but and I was in this position myself, when I started, I was a bit hesitant to any type of criticism, but I think you need to highlight that it's not personal at the end of the day, and you're trying to make them accountable. And when you are giving sort of feedback, it doesn't have to be defensive from their side straight away. You're not offending anyone personally. You're just, at the end of the day, trying to help them achieve the company's common goals and their own personal goals.
Yep. So Claudia.
Yeah, I can comment on the same. So for me, the excuses that kind of ring the flag for me, like wave the flag for me, are, let's not bring this up now. Let's wait until the next deadline or until the next milestone. And when I hear that from employees, but also from managers, for me, it's a signal of we delay this, we postpone this, we don't want to face it, we don't want to have a conversation. And that's also a signal of fatigue, but also disengagement, right? If we don't want to talk about the elephant in the room, it means that will continue.
Okay. So we've finalized our first topic over here. So one key metric that this month everyone should try and follow, from my perspective, of course, track leadership talk time. So do the percentages over there in the key meetings that you have, okay? And sanity check with the response rate, okay? So this will rework the ratio, how actually you're getting fruits from it. Now we're going to dive in the hardest part, okay? The reveal. So making the unsaid sayable without blowing trust. Last time we were discussing this, it was quite funny and intense at the same time. That's none of it can be aired right now as well. So, Claudia, starting with you now. What safe mechanism worked? Like skip 11 interviews, stay interviews, from your point of view now?
So, in my experience, there is no one standalone mechanism that works on itself, right? For sure, skip level meetings, stay interviews help, but they need to be done with a certain purpose and genuinity and not just ticking the bar. And at the same time, I think it's important in what culture you do this. You know, imagine that you have a company where there is a blame culture and somebody says, okay, tomorrow we will do stay interviews. You know, imagine people will not be open about that. And my philosophy is small moments are actually building culture. So, you know, as a leader, you can start from simply in your one-to-ones to ask, hey, what is one thing that we should talk about and we are not? After you have projects with your team, introduce retros, right, where the feedback can flow in all directions. Another one would be if you have town halls meetings, start experimenting with non-anonymous questions, right, to actually empower this culture of I'm owning my opinion. And one other insight that I want to share is this thing. It's very, very applicable also for C-level teams. So, for example, in my experience, what I always introduce in our C-level teams to build a stronger bond is speed dating feedback. Meaning, you know, we have quarterly our leadership meeting, and we always set aside a slot for team dynamic, for our team dynamic. And there we peer up and we give each other feedback. And what I observed is, first of all, it makes us a bit more courageous. Also, it works the muscle to receive feedback because it's not easy, right? You need to know how to understand it and how to react to it. And I think that also trickles in the organization because then we know how to ask for feedback from others, how to react to it. So I think it's all these moments of trust and truth. If they are done consistently and modeled from the top, they can build this culture where you can speak about the unspoken.
Okay. Now, Adam, from your point of view, you're not an HR, but in your position and everything, you sometimes need to wear the HR cap as well. So from your perspective on what Claudia said, but can you enlighten us a bit more?
No, I think Claudia said it perfectly. From my perspective and my experience, and I'll mention the one-on-ones especially. I've been involved in one-on-ones with my leader at the time where it felt more like an inquisition rather than a sort of one-on-one. So automatically you're on the back foot, and if there are certain issues that I'm having, I'm not going to put them forward because we're just ticking the check boxes. But there's no magic pill where sort of you can fix everything with one thing. So there are a lot of different ways that you can do it. Sometimes I think we overcomplicate it a bit too much, and maybe within sales teams it's a bit easier because it's pretty much black or white. The numbers never lie, but there's always a story behind them then. So I like to use the example of blame culture and sort of being passive aggressive as well. And I think if you address that immediately, where you're not attacking the person or you're not attacking the individual, it can go a long way in the long run then.
Okay. So language matters over here. So that's the most important key takeaway from both perspectives that you just gave us. Okay. So speaking about numbers, continuing with you, Adam, at time that data said fine, but the room said otherwise. How did you reconcile that?
That's always a tricky setup because if the numbers don't lie, so you know if you've hit your KPIs, you would expect a bit of a different dynamic within the room. But if the room is extremely silent, if people aren't sharing your enthusiasm for hitting those numbers, then something's very wrong, because it's a collective effort at the end of the day. Although there are individuals there's something very wrong if the room is very quiet, if people aren't sharing your enthusiasm. So then what you'd have to do is, as you said, put your HR cap on, and you need to dive down to see exactly what the problem is, because sometimes a problem can be really small, but it can spread extremely quickly within the team there.
Yeah. So we have seen that even salespeople need to wear the HR cap a lot of time. Thank God we don't need to be in those meetings as well from our perspective, but it's good that we have good leaders like you that are taking that step. Claudia.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, Chris. And I think some numbers can lie, but correlation don't lie.
Yeah.
I would put it like that because why I'm saying that, I came across in my experience where, let's take engagement surveys, right? And there were teams where the engagement numbers were okay or nice, but when we looked at, were they delivering? No. What was the turnover in that team was high, right? So there were signals also in other numbers, and also in the mood of the team. So what I usually do and what I advise is, don't necessarily celebrate and parade those numbers, but try to get under the hood and see the story behind. So what we usually do is, like, we have small meetings with the teams, like focus groups, to actually get the story behind the numbers. And in that specific situation, what we found out was people were somehow distancing themselves from the company because they felt unseen, right? They were not appreciated, recognized for what they were delivering. They felt, look, we are showing up, we are doing things, but nobody says at least good job. So that was on one instance. And what I always recommend when we have engagement surveys, always try to have these deep dives by teams or by function, where you get also the story behind the numbers. And always look at the comments, because I think comments usually are a treasure for for this type of things.
Yeah. Even it's the hard part. Leaders get defensive when they're looking at certain numbers. So from your perspective, we'll continue with you, Claudia. Step by step, how did you challenge and make that happen?
Yeah. I think this is a very sensitive topic, because it depends with whom you are interacting, right? The level of maturity, the level of openness, awareness. So usually what I do, so if let's say I have a leader in our team and the results of the engagement survey are not good, the way I approach the conversation is, first I want to, dial down the temperature. So I'm not coming from the angle, hey, you have these so horrendous results, let's talk about it, right? So not from that angle. Second, I first try to get his or her narrative. Like, what surprises you in these numbers? Or what do you feel is true, even if you don't like it? Right? I think we need to get this reflectiveness in, look, there are things that are there, you feel it. Let's here in this safe space talk about it.
No.
Then we get into the numbers, because we always need to come with numbers. So we need to go into what exactly the numbers are showing us. And the way I'm kind of evolving this is, hey, let's pick one or two, not 5, not 10, one or two levers that you want to work on, because they will have impact with your team. And after we do that, again, one or two behaviors that you as the leader of the team will change. Let's experiment with that, and let's have coaching loops for the next, 1 month and a half, to see how you feel, but also how your team reacts. So I think it needs to be a full circle of, we look at it, but also we have a plan and a follow-up to actually become a muscle for that leader. But it's not easy. I can tell you from experience.
So, traffic was bad, right, Mariia? Come and have a seat.
Sorry for being late. Hello, everyone. My name is Mariia. I'm HR team lead of private and company. I have expertise in hiring specialists of all levels, team management, and HR branding. I focus on building comfortable company environment and corporate culture. I'm always aware of the overall well-being of each employee in our company, and I'm able to identify and paint burnout early. No blind spots escapes my attention.
Amazing. Adam, so continuing on Claudia, so then we'll continue then starting with Maria. From your point of view, leaders get defensive so much. Maybe right now it's you because you're at that level, but before, what was the step by step that you showcases from your point of view?
I mean, being defensive isn't a bad thing to start off like that, but it's only if you can justify exactly why you're being defensive. And as we've been speaking about so far, as long as you can learn from it, it's fine. But as a step by step from my point of view, I always preach accountability. I think it's something that's extremely undervalued, or people just use it as one of these buzzwords where they want to be accountable, but being accountable is the first step to understanding what you can do better. So even from my point of view, everyone has people they report to, and I even do it at a home level with my kids. So if I'm angry at them and they're defensive straight away, or if they've done something wrong and they're just bringing up excuses, you try to teach them that you have to look at yourself first, and then you can look ahead.
Okay, good. Mariam, from your point of view, when employees come to you and they're defensive instantly, how do you take a...
In my context, defensive leader is one who refuse to accept real facts and arguments, relying solely on their own feelings. They doesn't listen for other positions. Imagine a situation, a child believes that the candidate is perfectly fit for the position, both in soft and hard skills, but the manager rejects him without any explanation. What will I do in this situation? First, we need to convey to the manager what we share the same goals to find a perfect fit. If it's necessary, I will invite another specialist to give one more point of view. I could also introduce an additional step such as test assignment to show how the candidate worked with the real world cases. If the manager's position remains unchanged, I will offer a compromise such as temporary contract or probation period to show how the candidate worked with the real world cases.
Okay, good. So one opener that always sort of worked for me, from my point of view. So I go to my boss. I might be wrong. Here's what I'm seeing, and it's the impact. And then I lay it out. Definitely when you're going to a boss, it always happened to me. I don't know if it's the same for you guys. Plan A never works. When you go with plan B, you would already anticipate what he's coming with. So once you're giving him that information, it's technically going to work in your favor and it's going to come back tenfold. So now let's go into the final part. So the turn to solve things in 60 days, not in 1 year. Okay, because 1 year, everybody puts that as a KPI nowadays and they see how they run it. They check it by quarter, but it doesn't merit, especially in this industry right now. So one behavior shifts morale within 60 days, okay? Adam, from your point of view, your single change and why it moved the needle.
Within 60 days, I think it's, from a sales point of view, it's important because if you go, as you said, if you go to your boss with a 60-day plan, he'll come back with a 30-day plan for you. So I think the things that could really move the needle would be the company, the team's morale in this case. So if the morale is low when you're starting off and you've done something to increase that morale, to help it, then you're going to see results very quickly.
Okay. Claudia, from your point of view.
It's very nice that you mentioned behaviors, what behaviors you would change or something that you will introduce, because I do believe that through behaviors you can model many things.
Yeah.
And I will give you 2 examples, what I use to kind of shift the balance in the forces. One of the things was modeling curiosity, asking questions. And why do I do that? I always think that curiosity is contagious. And usually when you have curious people or teams around you, it sparks energy, it sparks critical thinking, openness, and that at the end of the day makes people engage in what they do. So it was one time that I, entered into a team. It was quite plateau. So I needed to model asking questions and that it's safe to ask questions. So I started asking for feedback after meetings or in the meetings themselves. I was asking my team, like, okay, are there any other perspectives on this? Or am I missing something, right? So I show that, look, I might have blind spots. Help me out here. Come from different perspectives. And another point, I think, is explicit appreciation, right? It's something that it's so easy, doesn't cost anything, and it's beyond well done, great job, right? That's okay, but actually doesn't say anything. But it's mostly, I started giving appreciation to the team in a specific way. Hey, you did this great. Therefore, the result was this, or the client said that, or we got this approved, for them to really feel the connection between what they did well and the impact on that. And I think when people are, they see that you see them, that you name what they do, also, enthusiasm, interest, engagement grows. So very simple things that you can do every day that can actually shift the morale that also Chris was talking about.
Okay. Mariia, from your point of view, last time we were speaking a bit about certain tools that you implemented within your business. Okay, so what were the first quick wins that you managed to do in those 60 days?
So I could tell about how we structure our team. I'll talk specifically about my department, as I believe HR department is fundamental to building a comfortable environment. Our department's primary goal is to retain current employees by building a grading system. The system can help them to understand their development stages step by step and stay on track. New employees are also important and bonding play a vital role for them. A proper introduction can help them to understand their tasks and develop working plan for the first time, as well as integrate into the team. Of course, both of these categories need the feedback. They always want to know whatever if we are going in the same direction and how valuable they are for the business. So I also like to highlight team buildings and corporate events. All of these points can show us that they are not just the machines with the specific functions, but different people moving in the same direction.
Okay, good. Adam, from your point of view, structural tweaks, sales people always need to have a different structure. From your point of view, what was the quickest structure that you had to do with actually not adding headcount?
In terms of the structure within the sales team, I think first of all it depends on how big the team is, and like Claudia said, what type of professionals you're dealing with and in what field they're most suited to. But I think that is a good structure. So if you've got people that are more suited to selling one type of product because that's where their background lies, then you're already putting them in an environment where they're feeling comfortable. So it needs to be not just a one size fits all and everyone is sort of fishing in the same pond, but they're more structured and they're more tailored to their skills.
I'm looking at Claudia already putting her mic up, so she wants to continue saying a bit more what you just finished off. Claudia?
Sure. I will talk more about HR structure now. And I think there are two things. One is clarify the remit, right? Because make sure that each role knows what they should do. So what I did in one organization was really clarifying what the role of the business partner is, HR business partner is, in terms of supporting the business, understanding the team dynamics, and understanding the manager relationship with their teams. But the second one was, I think in HR team, yes, we need to have clear roles, but at the same time, everybody needs to be trained in most of the verticals in HR, because then you can also rotate, then you can also grow from a career perspective. So the two things that I've done were the operating model of HR, and especially on the HR business partner, and the second was let's master more things, not execute in a box.
I'm looking at our lovely host over there, already standing up and saying, okay, time is soon up. So last 15 seconds here. So this is to all the audience over here and also to you guys, okay? What is harder, seeing a blind spot, or admitting them? So think about it and action it. You don't need to actually answer it here because we don't have time and they will cut our mics off. I've seen that happen already. That's my last information from my side. So a round of applause to my speakers over here, Adam, Claudia, and Mariia. And thank you all again for an amazing event that you're hosting here in Rome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.